Hello and welcome to another episode of Podworld. My name's Simon Clark and I'm a broadcaster, and before I was a broadcaster I was a travel professional, and I'm knitting these two aspects of my life together to bring you a little insight into the travel world and places that you might want to visit. That's why the short podcasts last perhaps 5-10 minutes, documentary length for Marrakesh and Casablanca, which we did on site, but generally speaking, short snippets about what I found. And today we're in Malaysia, in the capital of Malaysia, exploring Georgetown, 48 hours in Penang, the island which Georgetown sits upon. Now, you may have noticed that my style for presenting these, if you've been with us for the other episodes, are observational, but I felt it only fair to mention that my time in Penang was punctuated by food poisoning, which I suffered on the first night. So my observations are caveated accordingly. Of course, falling ill is part and parcel of any traveller's experience, and really I count myself fortunate that it's only occurred rarely in my experience. However, Penang was one of those, and you know, it is entirely probable that I will return to Penang in the next couple of years or so, and if I do that, then this podcast will be updated. But to prove I bear Penang no ill feelings, I have written a short blog, and you can find this on Podworld on WordPress. If you search WordPress and Penang and keywords like Podworld, it will bring it up, and you will be able to follow what I found in Penang, along with some images that I took while I was there. To prove that, the opening image is of the curry house that caused me all the problems. This was in Little India. I tell you what, the food was great, even though it caused me great distress a little bit later on. It's a reminder of Penang's reason to exist, an entrepot of trade between India and China and Europe as well. And even today, Georgetown and Penang, in its strategic position down the Andaman Sea, is a key trading point, and you will see this when you enter Penang. If you go over the flyover, if you're driving, or if you go by ferry, if you sail there, you will see hundreds of ships lining up to get into the port to deliver its goods and take other services. So it's still, even to this day, Georgetown and Penang, an important trading post. The first night in Georgetown, in the island's main city, I spent at a place called Chong Fat Mansion, or the Blue Mansion, an extraordinary place. Chong Fat Zhe was a leading Chinese entrepreneur, and he did rather well for himself in the trade, and he grew up in the area. Chong Fat Zhe has now gone. His property, his mansion, has now been converted into an hotel, and that's where we stayed for the first night. It's not cheap, but it offers the visitor an excellent experience of grand living in imperial times. The rooms are huge, the meals are delightful, and in some senses the Blue Mansion is the Malaysian equivalent of an English stately home. And there is a link again on the blog, Podworld Penang, find it there, and it's a link to chongfatzhemansion.com, and you can get more information if that's a place that appeals to you. Now, the visitor to Georgetown will notice two geographical features: the sea that I've mentioned, from which the ships continue to trade along the straits, and the hill. This is a steep, dominant feature which overlooks the city. It's accessible by funicular railway, and it's possibly the most spectacular rail line of its type. And you can find out more about it by going on to penanghill.gov.my. And again, I've got a link on the blog to it. It is the longest funicular railway in Asia, and it has the steepest tunnel of any railway in the world. So if you've never been to Penang, it is a must. A really, really great experience. Try and get yourself to the front, especially for the downward journey. It moves, it shifts, and I also took a little film of that, and I think I've got a link to it on the blog as well. The other striking feature of Georgetown is its architecture. In such a relatively compact area, the influence of the British, Chinese and Indians can be seen in all its glory. And furthermore, modern Malaysia is also very much in evidence with modern high-rise buildings, sort of trying to encroach but not quite getting into the old traditional town. And there's plenty of indication of post-colonial wealth and investment in Penang. One of the unexpected delights was the Victorian Garden Tea Room, which seems to be a Malaysian idea of what an English country tea room was like. However, it also served delightful scones, or scones if that's your preference. Not what one expects perhaps in the tropics, but it was exceptional. That's the Victorian Garden, and you can find it on Facebook. So I was incapacitated for much of my time in Penang, so the entry for today on the podcast a little bit shorter than normal. I'm going to give Penang another go. You give it a go. Don't be put off by my experiences, because it is a wonderful place, a lovely city in a most wonderful country that I visit a lot, Malaysia. A lot of time for Malaysia and the Malaysian people. A wonderful, wonderful place. But yes, this was 48 hours, 48 delightful hours in Penang. Thanks for listening. There'll be more podcasts, and you can link to the other ones such as Venice and Madison and Morocco and lots of other places to come, many more in the United States. Lots for you to look forward to on my podcast, which is simply entitled Pod World. Thanks for listening.